The Waste Management Phoenix Open gonna have a different feel to it this week because usually it's the rowdy crowds, everyone cheering on, in the gallery, rooting people on, booing people, and all that stuff. This week, only 5,000 people in the crowd, but still one of the more popular events we're going to have. So a bit of a different feel, but still the same event, still a lot of fun, and still these same courses. So a lot to break down for today. Let you know which archetype of golfer we are emphasizing and our favorite golfers in each salary tier. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com. Joined here, as always, by Brandon Gdula. He is the managing editor for numberFire.com. Brandon, heading out to Phoenix for this week. How you doing today? Are you doing better than the Patrick Reed haters, who are seemingly most people?
I'm not, and that's because I was in on Patrick Reed last week. Not like this past week, but the week before. And then I was not on him this most recent week. So kind of just added some salt to the wound of everything, where like I was very in on him the week before. And then, I have a tendency to do that. It can be tough though. Sometimes I feel a little set in my ways if I just keep sticking with guys. But honestly, that's probably the better way to go about it, because you see enough in their profile to want to bet them in the first place. And if the course is somewhat similar, specifically for Reed, just another tough course, which is where he generally thrives because he's so good with the wedges. So, that was my mistake. But, the whole incident didn't necessarily help it go down any easier.
I was trying to read up on the whole burner Twitter account thing, because I always find those situations to be most fascinating, just because it shows you that, famous people are weird and have multiple Twitter accounts as well. Not that I have a burner, but I have there are other things going on.
That it's probably not him. That's
what I had read as well.
Yeah, it's most people think that it's his wife, but either way, it is fascinating, and it just adds to some of the intrigue. And you can say it's bad for golf or good for golf. Like, I think you can make the case either way. Unfortunately, golf's in such a good spot right now anyway that it shouldn't need this kind of stuff to draw more attention to it. But it's hard.
We're talking about golf more than we would usually. Yeah. I mean, for a non-major, like for a random event in January, we're talking about it. I think that weird personalities have a sort of appeal. Sometimes you need that heel, and Patrick Reed has proven time and time again he is very okay with taking up that mantle. So more power to him. I'm not going to root for him, but hey, I get it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he look, the thing, I think the hardest thing for me with Reed is I've been talking about him when I recommended to bet him 2 weeks ago. It's he's just so much better than I think everyone kind of realizes, because of all of this stuff. And it's he doesn't need to do this. He won by 4. He just kind of just put everyone away. I tuned it out because
there was no reason to follow it.
I watched. I was hoping, and then Victor Hovland went OB, but he doesn't have to do this, which is such a weird wrinkle to it all. So it's unfortunate, but he doesn't seem to mind.
No, he doesn't mind at all. And like I said, we're talking about golf for a random January event, which we would not usually be. I mean, we would be, I guess, because we had this podcast, but it was in the broader sports discourse, potentially because it was a pocket between, the conference championships and the Super Bowl, but still, as long as it's not an objectively negative thing like the Justin Thomas incident, that's not bad to get that talk. So Patrick Reed,
and nobody really talked about that as much, which is
that didn't get talked up either, which
not enough.
Exactly. So he's back in the field this week, so we'll certainly be talking about him at some point from a golf perspective. It's actually a pretty good field. John Rahm is here as well. Rory McIlroy, your boy Xander, fresh off another really impressive event. So a good field. A lot of good names at the top. We'll run through those and which golfers we are prioritizing throughout the day today. But first, a couple of schedule announcements. First, as always, it is Tuesday, which means Brandon will have his Q&A. That's on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Periscope accounts. Is it just Twitter now? We'll say Twitter. I think they got rid of Periscope. Either way, it's on Twitter. You can find it by subscribing to any of those channels. 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. If you're listening to this on Tuesday, make sure you tune in, ask Brandon questions about his win sims, which golfers he likes for DFS or for betting. 3:30 p.m. Eastern for that. Also, later this week, we'll have our typical playoff Q&A with myself, JJ, Zach Reason, and Brandon. That'll be 3:30 p.m. on Friday, talking through props for the Super Bowl, doing our betting contest, which I've clinched a tie of because why not? That will be Friday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, breaking down Super Bowl 55 again. We'll slip that in because why not? And then also we'll have a special, the first ever live edition of Covering the Spread is coming up Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, with myself, Dr. Ed Fang, JJ Zacharyson, and Aaron Kate Dolan. We'll be breaking down our favorite props for Super Bowl 55. That is 6 p.m. Thursday. A live edition of Covering the Spread that will also be on the YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter accounts for FanDuel. Let's dive in here to the Waste Management Phoenix Open. That is, as always, at TPC Scottsdale, the stadium course. It is 7,261 yards and a par 71. There are about 130 to 140 golfers in the field for this week. There will be a cut after the first two rounds. Top 65 plus ties will make it. So once again, we are prioritizing golfers who can make the cut but also have upside. So good luck. What could go wrong? If you recognize this event, it's probably because of the rowdy crowds they traditionally have out there in Phoenix. Again, crowds reduced to 5,000 this time, but that's more than they've had in the galleries, I think, since the COVID layoff, and probably will have for quite some time. So a different atmosphere than what we've had previously, but not the same as we've had at this event in the past. So, Brandon, crowds aren't going to matter as much this week. What will matter when it comes to stats in trying to figure out which golfers could thrive this week?
Driving is a big one. That is, that doesn't solve it. Just driving, like what stat do we use? I'll talk about that in a second. But like good driving to some degree, I think is going to be part of what separates golfers this week. Whether that can be strokes gained off the tee, it can be distance, it can be accuracy, because all three of those are more important at this course than it is at your average PGA Tour course, according to Data Golf's information that they have on, just their course fit, their course history tools. So that's pretty telling to me. Driving is important, and I'll talk more about that throughout the podcast. But what's also important and key always is iron play. It's a little down from the average tour stop. It usually explains about 35% of scoring dispersion. It's about 30% this week. So kind of trying to simplify it, honestly. Good drivers, they're going to be at an advantage this week. And I'm choosing distance over accuracy for a simple reason, and that's just that you can't fake distance. You can't club down and hit a fairway if needed. But Webb Simpson won this last year. Distance isn't something you absolutely have to have, but driving it well, which effectively is gaining strokes off the tee, is going to be important, and so is iron play. So that boils it all down to ball striking being very important for this course, in addition to putting. So basically all four strokes gained stats aside from around the green. The greens here are Bermuda, but they're overseeded a lot, so probably not going to factor in surface splits too much, just looking at long-term putting. And something that's important to note is that the average winning score here over the past 10 years is 17.5 under par. Only one of the past 10 winners that was better than 18 under, and that was Phil Mickelson at 28 under back in 2012. If you remove that from the data, the average winning score in those 9 years then is about 16 under. So not the most scoreable, definitely not something that's going to play, where the winner is even par, but it's also ranked around 20th in average FanDuel points the past 3 years. So we've seen it the past few weeks, but probably fewer birdies and more emphasis on finishing position. So it's kind of how I'm playing it, trying to keep it really simple this week, honestly, looking at ball striking through strokes gained off the tee, driving distance and approach, and then just long-term putting. So I think that's the right key, and that's going to lead you to a lot of the best golfers in the field. And when we look at the top of the field, we want it to show us that those are the guys that we should be building around anyway.
And I think you can get a similar read on it when looking back at who has done well here in the past. You're seeing guys like Hideki's traditionally a really good golfer. Last year, the leaderboard was Webb, Tony Finau, Justin Thomas. They were near the top. Ricky actually won an event back in 2019. JT finished well there as well. So usually it's the really good golfers who do well here, which is why I think it's noteworthy from a roster construction perspective that we do need high quality golfers for sure. Going back to what you said about off the tee play, though, I agree with you. You look at the data golf numbers, and it does show that both distance and accuracy are more important. That's why I didn't actually include raw distance as one of my numbers. I just went with strokes gained off the tee. And I think that the way that I'm viewing it is I don't want to cross off guys who aren't long because, like you said, Webb won here last year. Ches Reavie has done really well in the past. He's not long at all. So I think just emphasizing overall off the tee play and making it more important is the way that I'd phrase it. Both distance and accuracy matter a lot. So I don't want to cross off someone who doesn't necessarily do one well. As long as their aggregate off the tee play is pretty good, I'm going to bump them up here for sure. So I think that was kind of the key takeaway for me is that both matter. So I don't want to look at either individually. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick one, it would be distance.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm still going to emphasize off the tee more. It just, it sounds weird to study a course and say, the things that you should look for: strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained approach, and putting, and that's kind of it. But I think that's a good. I think it's a fine way to approach things for this week. It's going to get us the best golfers. It's going to, sort of weed out the thing that doesn't matter, which is around the green play. Just, historically, it doesn't matter nearly as much. And we do see such an emphasis on, hitting the driver well, that is something that, it just matters more. And I think the easiest way, I know the easiest way to gain strokes is through distance. So again, if I had to pick one, it's going to be distance, but strokes gained off the tee is fine enough in itself.
And isn't it a blessing that around the green play doesn't matter as much, given some of the players I want to target this week? That is a relief for sure. Big Game Bingo is back on FanDuel, and all you have to do to get in on the action is claim your free card. It is simple. Every bingo card has 24 big game props and a free square in the center. Your card will automatically mark the square for every prop that hits throughout the course of the game. And all you have to do is click Call Bingo when you fill 5 squares in a row to see if you win. The top 25,000 users will be eligible for prizes ranging from free entries to a $10,000 first place prize. For details, visit FanDuel.com/bingo or download the FanDuel app today. Eligibility restrictions apply. Let's take a look at golfers who have done well here in the past. As mentioned, a bit different this year because of the crowds, but it still is going to be most of the top guys who have shined here in the past, and we can still focus on those key stats. One guy who's done well here is Ricky Fowler. He was here back in 2019, won the event. As mentioned, Ricky got a win, which is always exciting. He is 10-3. We've been tracking Fowler in the current form section for a while, trying to see if he is ticking up, and it's still pretty inconclusive about whether he is. So what do you see with Ricky Fowler, specifically focusing on the course history and then the form?
Yeah, this is the site of his most recent win, which came back in 2019. The form is just good at this course otherwise as well. He's made 9 of 11 cuts at this course, has 4 total top 5s, 6 top 15s. So the 6 top 15s means he has more top 15s than he has not top 15s. It's a lot of top 15s. It's worth noting, of course, that Fowler's win came when he was in better form than he is now. He was averaging 2.7 strokes gained tee to green over the 10 events leading in, according to Fantasy National, is now at 1.3. So twice as many when he won than he is averaging now. And he's shown some really, just crazy iron splits in recent events. He's gained 3.5 strokes from approach, lost 7.5, gained 1.3, lost 4.4, gained 1.6, and then gained 1.4. But he has switched over equipment. So I think we can maybe buy into that smaller sample of the irons being maybe a little less completely terrible, maybe figuring some things out. I believe he's shifted over to graphite shafts all throughout the bag, except maybe the putter. I don't know. I know Bryson's all graphite, but I think, we've seen the positive results from this shift. And so I think he's kind of flattened out. He's not getting like markedly better, but he's definitely not trending downward anymore. He's kind of, just staying steady. So He's on Bermuda greens if you want to consider these Bermuda greens. He's historically a strong putter there. At least we know he's not on POA, which is where he was. He's not specifically good on POA. So I think there's kind of enough about Fowler to want to buy in to some degree. I'm not quite sold on him at a salary of $10,300, but what are you seeing with Ricky here? Any interest in a former winner?
Well, I think he's done enough to not be a cross off is the way that I'd phrase it. Like, I'm not going to go like, no. I think the problem is that the salary that you alluded to is in a pretty good range. Like, we're going to talk about Bubba Watson in a second. I would prefer Bubba between the two, despite Bubba's, short game woes for sure. But I think that Bubba would be of more interest to me given his strength off the tee. I also, you can look at someone like Will Zalatoris is around here. Sung J M, if, around the green play doesn't matter as much, that could be beneficial for him. He is 10-8. It's a decent gap between him down to Fowler, who is 10-3. And then also, I know last week was really, 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 really bad. And I know he's not allegedly at full health, but Matthew Wolff is 10-2. And I'm not going to prioritize Matthew Wolff given the fact that he says he's hurt, but I'd rather risk it with Matthew Wolff than risk it with Fowler. So although Fowler's not a cross-off, because like you mentioned, he's done some better things recently, I still think I'd rather go elsewhere. And as a result, I probably won't wind up on Ricky, but I would also, again, he's not a cross-off to me. Is he someone you're prioritizing or no?
I'm not prioritizing. I think that there's enough not to cross him off. It's going to depend a lot on where I settle in with roster construction, frankly, because we have a big four with Rom, JT, Rory, and Xander. You could maybe throw Webb in there. We both like Daniel Berger, so that's kind of a spoiler. He's 11-1, so not quite in that tier, but it's going to depend on if you are trying to jam in 1 to 2 of those guys. If you are, you're not going to get to someone around 10,000. You can kind of go a little bit more balanced if you'd like. So it's going to depend more on where I am with roster construction. And I like enough in the low 9,000s where if I can get up from Fowler to any number of other golfers, I'm probably going to do that. So, I've been saying this a lot lately, but Fowler's not someone I would talk anyone into necessarily at this point, but I'm also not at the point where I would talk anyone out of Fowler. There's enough, from a course form and a recent form to kind of buy back in just at least, but cautiously.
Who do you like in the low 9,000 range? I don't like anyone there. I can't name a single person I would want to recommend there.
Taylor Gooch.
Okay, fine.
Brendan Steele. I would consider Byung-Hun An.
Okay.
Maybe Cam Champ.
I hate that range. So we might be different in terms of roster construction this week because I want to actively avoid it.
So that means you're either going to dip down into the 8,000 range,
yeah,
which is terrible to me.
No,
significantly worse than those guys.
No,
I do see a big drop off there, so that's probably part of it. I had a hard time finding enough value to write up. So
I had a hard time finding a low 9,000 guy, so I cheated and put Cory Connors, who is 9.5 in my player picks. I think there's a big drop off to him. Maybe you put on there, but I think we might be on a different page for roster construction this week because I want to actively avoid that tier, even if it means I'm going back to that money draining well with Eric Van Rooyen. Might happen. Don't shake your head yet. Don't shake your head yet.
It sounds great until Van Rooyen puts himself out and misses the cut.
He's only 81st in aggregate putting the past 100 rounds. Better than usual. Let's go. Speaking of bad putters, Hideki. He has done well here in the past. Let's talk about Hideki Matsuyama. Usually the concern with him is that he doesn't win. Lacks the upside to win. And that's true for most courses, but TPC Scottsdale generally an exception. Hideki has 6 career wins in the PGA Tour, and 2 of those have come here. He won in 2016, then defended in 2017. He was also second the year before that. So 3 first or second place finishes. And he's done that even without being a plus putter. In the 3 events with the plus finishes, he gained an average of 1.4 strokes putting. He was just so good everywhere else that he didn't need to have an outlier week in the putting department, which is good for sure. The problem is that in those wins for Hideki were pretty far in the past. Last year, he lost 1.6 off the tee. that mitigated the 6 strokes he gained in approach. He lost 4.1 strokes putting in 2019, finished 15th there despite amazing ball striking. And the ball striking has been more volatile for Hideki recently. He lost 1.8 in approach at the Tournament Champions, gained 6.8 at the Sony, lost 1.4 at the Farmers, and the putting has been as bad as usual. So even with the plus history here, I don't think Hideki is in the same tier as Daniel Berger. So like you were talking about how there's a big 4, I agree there's a big 4. I could make an argument for there being a big 6, and I think that there is a fall off after that, and Hideki is part of that fall off to me after those big 6. How are you viewing Hideki for this week?
Yeah, I think he's fine. It's funny how we can talk about someone and their struggles, because you said, and you were right in saying this, with how good he was tee to green, he didn't need an outlier performance to win. But what that meant is that he needed an outlier performance tee to green alone to win. Yeah. I started looking at just what it takes to win on the PGA Tour. You have to gain like 13 to 14 strokes on the field. It ranges. It depends, but somewhere in that range. And Hideki was basically there tee to green and just didn't lose strokes putting. You can't, like, the average tour winner since the start of 2020 gains about 4 to 5 strokes from putting. So you can win without gaining 4 strokes putting. But like, if you look back through his log, he gained 4.5 at the Houston Open when he was runner up. But he doesn't really get to like 4 ever. So the odds of his winning, it's just so much lower than it needs to be at that salary. So I think he would be a better high floor FanDuel play if his salary were like 10-4, 10-5, but it's not, and it probably doesn't need to be to make him a good play. But you really got to think that his chances of winning are so low because he doesn't have the ability to putt his way to the top of the leaderboard.
And the other thing too is we just care less about floor than we may have previously, and maybe than the public does now. We're like, floor is good, floor is acceptable, but you should not sacrifice upside in order to gain floor. And I think that by using Hideki, that's what you'd be doing. Like, I think that Berger has a much better ceiling.
I love Xander. I don't think the fact that he hasn't won in a while is a huge problem, but looking at like JT and Xander's statistically, I think I like the fit more, which is kind of, intriguing, but I know how much JT wins and can win. So like, I'm starting to get that way with like all of these decisions is, can you really close it out? We love Tony Finau. At some point, like, you have to be able to, either putt well enough to get yourself to the top or show enough. And so I think a lot of it is variance and just kind of luck. But, Hideki is someone I've been staying away from for months now.
I think that was just a whole long subtweet of my Ryan Blaney affinity. You got to be able to close it out, bud. Let's win one race here, man. Let's go. Let's talk about Byung-Hun On here, $9,400. So a different salary discussion with On than with others, and a course he knows pretty well. He's done well here consistently. Are you seeing enough with On recently to buy into the past performance in Phoenix?
Well, let's talk. I mean, he's back on the menu at Phoenix. He's played this course 4 times, finished top 25 in all 4 of those starts with 2 top 10s. He was 9th last year. That salary, you would take a top 10. You would take really a top 25, maybe hope for a little bit more, closer to top 15. But if you're really pushing for the top of the leaderboard, but that's a good, again, floor for someone at that salary. But he's gained 4.2 strokes tee to green in all 4 of those starts. So pretty solid tee to green numbers. He's also been a plus putter overall at this course, which, if you know anything about Byung-Hun On, that's going to surprise you. He gained 4.4 strokes from putting in these 16 rounds. The past 2 starts have totaled, a loss of 1.8, but it's not completely terrible. We've seen some positive numbers from him. His recent form is more bad than good, though. He's missed 5 cuts in his past 9 starts since and including the U.S. Open, but only once in that span did he gain strokes putting. Last week, we had 3 rounds from Torrey Pines South. He lost 8.5 strokes putting. If you go back through his log on Fantasy National, lost 8.5, gained 1 at the American Express when he finished 8th, lost 0.8 at the Zozo, then lost 6.3, 4.7, 6.3, 4.2, 1.1, 3.3. So Byung-Hun is very similar to Hideki in the sense that the tee to green game is really good for the salary, but if you can't putt well enough and you can actively putt yourself into a missed cut or putt yourself, for Hideki, it's more putting yourself to like a 20th than a top 5, there's an issue. So I don't just want to chase the course form and say he's going to putt well here because we know how bad the putter can be. So I was expecting to like Ben on a little more than I do now, but really looking at that putting, it's so hard to click him into a lineup.
I think the other thing too is if it were just the putting, I could potentially buy into it, but it doesn't seem to be just the putting right now because his off the tee play has been like, I would say spotty is the way that I'd phrase it. And he hasn't had a lot of spike weeks recently. Like if you just look at his off the tee, strokes gained off the tee, let's say since the COVID layoff, he has gained more than 2 strokes off the tee once. That was 3.1 at the CJ Cup. He has never been more than 3.1 there. The approach play has been fine. No concerns there, but he's not eating off the tee the way he has done historically throughout his career. And the putting is always going to be a concern. So if it were just the putting, I think I could be in on Byung-Hun on. But I think when you put in the concerns around the off the tee play with how much off the tee matters here, I think there is enough where I'd rather spend a bit more to get back into the high 9,000 range, which I think is a lot better. So that's part of the reason why I think there is a tier fall off as you get below $9,500 is there are multiple red flags here. And that's enough for me to not buy in. I could understand it for tournaments, but I don't personally think I'm going to get there just yet. There are too many things that push me away.
Yeah. I mentioned him as someone that I would consider in that range. It's not a range that I specifically love. And you mentioned you prefer the upper 9,000 range. I'm with you. But I think there are at least enough names where you could click on and make a lineup work. For whatever reason, the way that my brain works is I consider like the high 8s and the low 9s as well, just kind of that tier. But I think we've seen enough from Ben on to be worried and not necessarily chase the course form without without any sort of caution.
Yeah. I think that I'm on board with that as well. So let's talk about Bubba Watson, back up in the 10,000 range. He's 10-4 specifically, and you were into Bubba last week and didn't work out there, but the hope here is he can pull a Patrick Reed and bounce back at a course he knows well and has done well at previously. Bubba has been coming to Phoenix for more than a decade now, and he's been competitive that entire stretch. His first top 5 finish was back in 2012, so almost a decade ago, and he has 5 total top 5s, including a pair of runner-ups. He was 4th and 3rd the past 2 years, so the form of this course, not just a long one, but it's also good recently, and I think that's important for someone who's been doing this for as long as Watson has. Last year, Watson gained 7.3 strokes tee to green, 3.2 off the tee, 3.8 in approach, and he actually led the field tee to green the year before that. Bubba did struggle on approach at the Farmers, but it's important to remember that was across just one measured round. That was, before he had the long layoff coming off of, or before the long layoff for the holidays, he was doing really well with his approach play. But at the same time, this is the only data we have on Bubba since November 15th. So it's a long layoff, and our only recent data is not that good. He looks solid statistically and has good long-term form, and it's a good course. So personally, I think that if I'm in this range, Bubba's one of the first names I go to. I don't know how often I'll be here, but I'm willing to overlook what happened last week because the long-term form is so good, and we know that Bubba is a good golfer. So roster construction might not take me here, but I would be okay with Bubba if it does. What about you?
I'm going back. It's not just the thoughts of Patrick Reed, but right. It's a lot, and we don't learn enough from a one-round sample, or I guess in this case a one-round sample
is literally one round,
with the strokes gain data. But I was looking up his greens in regulation gained. He gained 0.7 at the Farmers, so can probably assume the iron play was better on the North course than it was on the South course. But we know, from all of my research, you can't learn anything from 2 rounds. That's why you should look at longer samples than that. And the longer samples point me to going back to Bubba. We know he's got the length if you want to play that angle, but more specifically, we know he can gain strokes off the tee. We know that he can gain strokes with the irons. We know that he's done well at this course. So, we don't put course form at the top, but it's always good to see that in addition to someone who's not a superstar, in terms of like the top 5, who we would just consider superstars and be in play anywhere. Bubba's very much more course sensitive than some other golfers. So I'm back in on Bubba. I will probably just bet him as soon as we're done. Just go back to it, honestly.
Yeah, I think there's no reason not to. I want to talk to you about this tier more broadly, but first I want to go into our current form section because that's discussing another guy in this tier. That's Ryan Palmer. He is 10-1, and he is at the bottom end of this tier, like the 10,000 range. Because again, I might not be here all that often, but I do want to. I think that it actually increases my need to prioritize when I am there, so I'm not spreading myself too thin. So I want to talk through this range more broadly, and Palmer is part of that. The interesting thing for me is that Palmer's not usually in this range, the salary reacting to how good he has been, but that's justified. So what are you seeing with Palmer's current form, and does that justify the increased salary at 10-1?
Yeah, so he's like on a mini heater right now. It looks a lot better too if you scale it back to the summer, which again just goes into what's current form at this point in the year. Is it just January? Probably shouldn't be, but it just kind of depends, and we will use it however we see fit because it's our podcast. But he had a runner-up at the Memorial in July, has just one missed cut, which was at the U.S. Open. After that, finished 17th at the CJ Cup, 4th at the Zozo in mid-October, and then we saw him return at the Tournament of Champions when he finished 4th. Was 41st at the Sony, but runner-up last week at the Farmers. If you look at the data, it's pretty much what you'd expect. Good overall iron play, good driving. He's now gained 11 strokes from putting the past 2 rounds, though, or the past 2 events, and almost 15 over the past 4, which is about 3.7 strokes per event from putting, which is not necessarily his forte. That includes 7.8 from just the 3 measured rounds last week at Torrey Pines South. So we talk about this a lot, and a golfer can increase their salary by performing at the high end. And you think, is it time to buy in, or is Ryan Palmer playing at his peak? Has he kind of peaked? Is he going to win this event? He probably could because he fits it well enough from what we're looking for from a stat standpoint. But is he just now over salaried because he's been playing so well for so long? I'm inclined to think that's the case, and we should start to pump the brakes a little bit with the salary being where it is. But also, I mean, on the flip side, it's hard to make the case against the current form. It just sort of depends on what the putter does. So talk to me about Palmer and talk to me about your thoughts on this range.
I think your thoughts on Palmer are correct, where, it's possible the salary has gotten too high, and we have an obvious out in taking a wait-and-see approach in that, A, for me, roster construction probably will not take me here, and B, there are other guys in this range who I think are really good. If I'm talking about this range broadly, I would say it's very possible Bubba winds up being the top guy there. I would not be opposed to that. I can't build around Matthew Wolff, but I would like to have a share of Matthew Wolff because I know that he withdrew because of the hand injury. It's possible it was more of an ego injury after he went 6 over and torpedoed every single lineup that I had. So I would be inclined to take risks there because it's not going to be whoever I wind up using this range will not be a core play because I won't be here very often. So because of that, I think that I'm going to have a pretty narrow player pool here, and Palmer won't be in my top 3 or top 2 because I know that Bubba and Wolff will be there, and I would probably go Scotty Scheffler if I were to expand to a third. So I'm not going to get to Palmer, and that's my thoughts overall in this tier. What about for you?
So I like Palmer. If you're in this range, I think he's still one of the better plays if you compare him to who else is there. Let's just say, Scotty Scheffler's got a lot going on. I'm having a hard time with Scheffler.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get too ahead of myself with Scheffler. We talked about Bubba. I think we're probably both on the same page where he's the number 1 in this range. I think you said that. Fowler is justifiable. Wolf, you never know what's going on, but also with the injury, you don't know what's going on, but also there's enough to be kind of concerned about. And this is one of the weird things with golf that we don't typically deal with when we're analyzing, football or any other sports. It's, you have your caddy, but you're out there alone. If you're in your own head, there's going to be a lot that sort of affects how you play. It's not just, do you have a good matchup against the pitcher? Like, we know something's not quite right with Matthew Wolff. We know it is high end. He should be able to win just about anywhere. So I'm a little bit out on Wolff. Gary Woodland was terrible with the driver last week. So I think by default, Palmer is my number 2 in this range.
Yep.
It just depends on, can I get back up there if I plug in one stud? Even plugging in one of the four studs it's a little hard to get there unless you do jump down. So I'm probably not going to be in this range too much, but I think Palmer's still a justifiable play either way.
The reason I'm willing to risk it with Wolff is I think that the upside is still there. I know the floor is bad. Like the floor is lava.
The floor for any of these golfers, though, is just
exactly. So that's the thing. And I'd rather take the guy who, when he's right, can win this event. And I think that Wolff has that more in his range of outcomes than not everyone in this tier, but a lot of guys in this tier. So as long as he doesn't withdraw, which is possible. He could withdraw while we're recording. That's possible. But I'm willing to risk it personally. We had this discussion with Rom last week, and I was willing to, risk it there coming off an quote unquote injury. I think I'm willing to do it with Wolff too, but I need to cap my exposure at 20% max. But I think that's okay given how rarely I'll be in this tier. But the overall takeaway is Bubba number 1 for both of us in this tier.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about some mid-range guys and talk about Cory Connors, because we've talked about the importance of ball strikers here, guys who can do well off the tee with approach. We've seen some bad putters like Hideki Matsuyama win here. So Cory Connors week, $9,500. Connors didn't really light it up at the Farmers, but he did show that he had not lost his big upswing from the fall, gained 4.5 tee to green across the 3 measured rounds. It was his 4th straight measured event, gaining at least 4.4 tee to green. In 2 of the unmeasured events, which were the OHL Classic and the Masters, got top 20 finishes there. So even in the unmeasured events, Connor's doing well broadly. He is an awesome ball striker. He has been avoiding the blowups as a putter of late. And I mean that in the positive sense. Blowups can be a good thing too. He's been avoiding the catastrophic events on the greens, which is good. That's much better than the past Cory Connors. He has not lost more than a stroke on the greens since August. So I'm going to buy back on board with Cory Connors at $9,500. Is this the right time for you to be in on him as well?
Yeah, I like him. He's one of your player picks. He would have been one of mine if not. I think he's one of the best plays in this range. And a lot of the same notes you had as what I had is like the putting is not, he's not putting himself out of tournaments at this point. He's not gaining a ton. He's not gaining enough to win, which is why that's something that, you gotta think he's not going to win this week. I feel very confident in saying that. But he's also not putting himself out. So I feel, again, we're not looking for just floor, but good tee to green and lukewarm putting, like field average putting, is still enough to get you in a top 10 with how good Cory Connors can be tee to green. So I'm in on Connors pretty heavily at that salary. I think he's, I would feel pretty confident saying he's going to be in my head-to-head lineup against you this week.
I would agree. And the top 10 discussion you were having is not hypothetical either. We've seen him get top 10s. Like, it's not he can finish top 10. It's that he has. So I think that helps too, where I'm not going to cross someone off that they have not put it all together for a top 10. We'll talk about that with a couple of guys later on. But it doesn't hurt when it's not a hypothetical discussion with him, which I think is beneficial. I'm going to send you our head-to-head link here in just a second. First, I want to hear you talk with Max Homa. Same range as Cory Connors. He is $9,600. Homa, another guy who I think makes this mid-9,000 range interesting. But I want to hear you talk through him first. What are you seeing with Homa in the current form?
Yeah, so he's shown up for the West Coast swing in the past. He's doing it again, it seems. Finished 21st at the American Express, 18th at the Farmers. There are some red flags. The driver's not quite been his best asset, and that is something that we need this week. He's lost 2 strokes in each of those 2 starts, which is just 3 rounds for ShotLink last week, or in the week before. But he's gained 5 strokes with the irons, specifically 4.5 last week at the Farmers, which did include a hole out. But he finished 12th at the Mayakoba in December. So he's got three straight top 25 finishes with like passable overall data. And last year, I think there was a graphic about this actually, but he had some of the best finishes on the West Coast swing. Last year, he just went, the high end for Max Homa out in California, which is where he's from. 48th at the American Express, then 9th at the Farmers, 6th at the Waste Management Phoenix Open, and then continued it. So we've seen him sort of round into form playing out on the West Coast. And he's got the irons. He can drive the ball well enough. So he's intriguing, but again, the salary is up from where it typically has been. It's a little bit steep. I'm not saying that he is, quote unquote, priced out at 9,600. But between he and Connors, I think Connors is easily the more justifiable play. But I'm probably leaning toward like one stud, and that gets you somewhere, to build around 9,500 for your other 5. I might just hover in that range and not necessarily dip too far below 9,000. So Homa is someone I'm really considering this week. I think there's enough in his profile to like. Any thoughts on Homa for you?
Yeah, I think that he is a consideration for me, but he's going to grade out being a bit lower. The difference between Homa grading out a bit lower in this tier and Ryan Palmer for me is that I'm going to be in this tier more often. I'm going to take the discount pretty decent amount. And so although Homa might wind up being like 4th or 5th in this range, it's not out of consideration that I can get there. I think Cory Connors is awesome. I think Sam Burns is someone I want to use once again this week. Siwoo Kim is there. Russell Henley is there. All those guys are golfers I am willing to use for this week. So Homa might wind up being 5th in this range, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to use him because I think I will be in this range pretty often. Yeah. So we're both going to be pretty often, just we're taking different routes to get there, I think, because I'm going to have 2 studs. I know that for sure.
I'm considering it. There have been some really weird optimal splits at this event. Last year, the optimal spent 58,600. The year before, 58,800, and then in 2018, just 56.2. It's been strange. We have seen some good performances. That doesn't necessarily mean that you should just like punt and predict that someone in the 7,000 range is going to play well. If you do hit that, there's a lot of advantages to that. But with so much of the win equity at the top of the field, I think getting 2 studs is easily justifiable. I think it's quite doable, honestly, even with one sort of play in the 8,000 range. So it's going to come down to roster construction. But I think like even with that, Homa is someone I would consider even putting in our head-to-head. So I think I'm higher on Homa than you are.
Yeah, a little bit. But like I said, I'm not going to cross him off. He is someone I would go to there, and I would not be shocked if he winds up in my player pool, just not the first guy I go to in that tier. So I'm guessing the actual takeaway is that I'm higher on guys like Siwoo Kim, and there was someone else listed in there. Henley is there.
No, I'm high on Henley and Sam Burns. So
we're probably pretty lockstep. It's just that I'm higher on Siwoo Kim than you are. That's probably the main takeaway here, I think.
Sure. I guess. Yeah. I'm also I'm just interested to hear who you like in the value range, but we'll get to that.
You can predict. You know me. To my own detriment, you can predict who I'm going to like in the value range. So let's talk about Chris Kirk, who is in the value range. He's $8,900, but might not be the main guy standing out here. But he's just a few weeks removed from, he had to rally just to keep his PGA Tour card. And it's been a while since we've seen him consistently putting up good rounds, but he's actually golfing pretty well right now. Kirk kept that card by finishing 2nd at the Sony Open. He gained 4.8 on approach there and 7.1 tee to green to get the good finish. Followed that up by gaining 4.7 on approach at the American Express. And in this time, the off-the-tee play hasn't been good for Kirk, but the larger sample on him is solid. Ranks 38th off the tee the past 50 rounds, $8,900. Now, Brandon, usually our discussion is for an older golfer, we should not buy into small samples because the odds they've improved are low. But Kirk had a really long layoff, as we know. seems like he might be getting back to his quote unquote old self from a golf perspective. So are you buying into his resurgence, or do you think that he's more due for regression and a trap at $8,900?
So I mean, he can be due for regression, but his long term is not bad. Like his long term is frankly pretty solid. I swapped over to adjusting strokes against stats myself. So I have him in the 58th percentile off the tee since the start of 2020, 66th percentile with approach. So good enough ball striking for the salary. Not necessarily long off the tee, but he can come back from gaining 4+ strokes with the irons and still be around field average, which honestly, in the 8,000 range, being field average and making the cut is something that's justifiable. I said justifiable like 40 times today, but we want ceiling, but he has a path to that ceiling because he does, so he can do everything well. So I think Kirk's one of the more, I won't say justifiable plays, but one of the better plays down in that 8,000 range.
Yeah, definitely someone I would go to. I think that there are like 3 guys I'm pretty into in the 8,000 range. Now that's a risk because I don't want to build around them, but I think there are enough where if I'm using one of them per lineup, I will spread out my exposure enough to be okay. And I think that Kirk will be one of the guys I'm going to down there, and I'm pretty comfortable with that for the reasons that you mentioned as well. So I think Chris Kirk, $8,900. It's good to see him golfing well again. I think that like just from a feel-good perspective, it's fun to see him doing well. But also, we've seen enough where I think we can believe in it being real too and use him for this week, $8,900.
Yeah. I'm just building more. I don't know if I can get 2 studs.
I can. I built one that I'm currently having for the bobble hat, and you're going to yell at me on Thursday, and I'm looking forward to it. Once you see things lock, you're going to call me stupid, and I'm excited for it personally. It's going to be great. What could go wrong with
Eric Van Rooyen?
Cash? What could go wrong?
Is it EVR?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, baby. What could go wrong? Let's take a look at what the bookmakers are saying here. They are not saying Eric Van Rooyen is a favorite, but hey, I will. John Rahm is the favorite at FanDuel Sportsbook, sitting down at plus 650. Justin Thomas is 9-1. He is in the second tier by himself. Rory McIlroy and Xander Schauffele are both 11-1. Webb Simpson is 17-1. Daniel Berger is 20-1. Got Hideki Matsuyama at 25-1, followed by Harris English at 28-1. And then Sungjae Im rounds out the top group. He is 33-1. So when we look at these odds, Brandon, they are steeper than usual. The fall off to the second/third tiers of golfers comes more quickly than it usually does. There are fewer high-end guys than usual. Does that push you toward a more top-heavy approach here, prioritizing getting a couple of guys in that tier, or is your disdain for the value tier too much for you to do it that way?
I think that, yeah, there's a big drop, but there's still another drop between like the 10,000 range and the 9,000 range. And we need to keep that in mind. That's something that has really changed the way that I've built lineups for the most part. Is there is a big difference between, Bubba Watson, even Ryan Palmer now with how he's golfing. You could maybe throw Ricky into that mix, but compared to your Cameron Champs, your Ben-Ons, even your Max Homas, like there's a huge gap there. So I don't want to neglect the 10,000 range just to get 2 studs. I think I'm probably going to settle in more with one of the top 4 in just about every lineup. You could maybe extend that to the top 6 because I like Daniel Berger a lot. I have not thought about Webb Simpson, which is scary because, I mean, he's so good. It's going to be weird to see the popularity on how that shakes out by Thursday, because we've got 4 superstars. We've got Webb, who won here last year and is awesome. And then, I think that we're getting a lot of leverage from Daniel Berger. So it's going to be intriguing, but I think ultimately where I'm going to end up is one of the studs and a little bit more of a balanced lineup beyond that.
I will say, if you hate yourself enough, you can get in 2 studs and Bubba. I made it happen. Not saying it was an optimal lineup, but you can make it happen.
Are you considering Berger as a stud there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. That's a lot easier.
Yeah. Because the drop off from Xander to Berger is $500. But like, to me, I think that Berger is closer to them than the odds would indicate. We've actually seen, I think, Berger's odds. Yeah, he was 22. He's now 20. So, like, it seems as if the betting public views him as being closer to that tier than the opening odds would have suggested. So I'm actually okay in lumping Berger in there. He's definitely at the bottom of that tier, but his salary is also down there too. So I'm actually okay with that personally.
Yeah, I mean, look, I said this last week too. I feel bad I don't talk about like punt, like, I don't want to call them punt plays, but like, these guys in the below 8,500. Yeah, we see them in the optimal lineup, but there are however many guys down there, like 50, 60. Yeah, one of them might pop, but
do you predict correctly which one it'll be?
Yeah, so I just have been moving away from that, and that might seem like it's a higher floor play, and it probably is, but it's also a higher stealing play because you get, one of these guys down here is not going to win this event. We just don't see it at this type of event. We see it at like weaker fields, sure, but at a field like this, you kind of want you need to have all 6 of your golfers and be able to look at them and say, I think this dude can win this event this week.
So that's why you're using EVR.
No.
Which golfers' odds have shifted since things came out yesterday?
There's been so much. I've just tried to keep it to like the more notable ones. Hideki has fallen from 20 to 25 to 1 on FanDuel Sportsbook from Monday morning into Tuesday morning. Sungjae Im 29 to 33. Will Zalatoris 34 to 40. Ricky Fowler, Scotty Scheffler, Bubba Watson, all in that mid-range. From a daily fantasy standpoint, they've all fallen from 41 to 45 to 1. Matthew Wolff 45 to 50. I could keep going, but those are the most notable ones toward the top of the field. And there are a few golfers whose odds have shortened, which feels pretty substantial, just because most guys have just lengthened. But Max Homa 70 to 65. Chris Kirk, your boy, 100 to 90. Sepp Straka 120 to 100, and then Martin Laird and Matt Jones 150 to 100.
Usually get mad when you call someone my boy. I'm okay with Chris Kirk. That one.
I usually do it when they're not your boy, but
yeah, usually it's Ian Poulter. It's always Ian Poulter, I should say. This time it wasn't, so I'm okay with that. I can take Chris Kirk for sure. Does Zalatoris do anything for you? I know that the odds have lengthened, so this is kind of going the opposite direction of what we usually talk about. But does Zalatoris interest you at all, or is the salary too high?
He does. I thought about him kind of long and hard. It's tough because he's right behind. So he's 10-6 on FanDuel. Brooks Koepka is 10-7. We have not mentioned Brooks yet.
I don't think there's any reason to, personally.
Like Sungjae Im is 10-8. Bubba's 10-4. Like, if you want to build the most chalky lineup you can just like play Will Zalatoris over. I don't know who's going to be chalky yet. I haven't looked into that much. It's hard to get a good read on Tuesday morning as well. But, Zalatoris does enough for me to interest him. It's just I'm probably not going to be able to get to him at that salary. If I'm in that range, it's going to be Bubba. It's probably going to be Ryan Palmer over Zalatoris. I also like Harris English at 10-9. So probably not going to get to Zalatoris, but I'm not going to talk anybody out of him because he should do what he needs to do to fare well at this course.
Yeah. The Wolf odds lengthening does not bode well for my DGAF mentality, but whatever. Which lower salary golfers have odds that stand out to you?
In that 95 and below range, not a ton. We have Cory Connors at 70 to 1. So I'm assuming Connors will be one of the chalkier picks in that 9,000 range. Brandon Steele, Byung-Hoon Ahn, and Chris Kirk are all 90 to 1. If you want to dip below 9,000, it's pretty limited. Chris Kirk's 90 to 1, and then these guys are all 100 to 1. Henrik Norlander, Martin Laird, Sepp Straka, Adam Hadwin, Matt Jones, and Jordan Spieth.
100 to 1 and $9,000 for Jordan Spieth. What a fun time. I'd agree with your assessment that Connors will probably wind up being fairly popular. People who do stats-based analysis, which is probably most people doing PGA DFS stuff, are going to see Connors and probably going to talk him up. So I would assume he'll be popular. I'm okay with it. He's not going to be 40%, and that's fine. So that's where I'm at.
What helps, too, is that it's so... Like, we have so many options at the top that I don't think anyone's going to merge as like 40%. So you're naturally going to be a little bit more dispersed, even though the field's a little bit smaller. So we kind of see, popularity numbers increase just by nature. But, you don't have, I don't think there's anyone you're going to have to avoid this week. You can still be a little bit different in other ways.
I would have the same read as well. So weather for this week, nothing. It's great. Classic Phoenix. So we're good to go there. Nice deviation from last week. Nice deviation from all of you on the East Coast, I'm sure. So fly out to Phoenix next time for the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Let's talk about our player picks here for the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Brandon, who is your top play in the top tier on FanDuel for this week?
I'm going to go with Jon Rahm. He is 12,000, so he's the highest salaried golfer. He's the betting favorite on FanDuel Sportsbook. He's the betting favorite in my win simulation model. But, I mean, look, Rahm, Justin Thomas, Rory, Xander, Webb, and you and I are both on the same page, Daniel Berger. They're all good plays. It's so hard to, nitpick. If I can only pick one, it's going to be Jon Rahm for kind of a lot of reasons, though. So I feel pretty comfortable putting Rahm number one in sort of his own tier. He's just really good at TPC Scottsdale. He's finished top 16 4 straight years at this event. He's just so good at everything that we need here. He's in the 91st percentile in driving distance, 99th percentile in adjusted strokes gained off the tee, 91st in adjusted strokes gained approach, 91st in adjusted strokes gained putting since the start of 2020. Assuming, I think the only way that I would get off Rahm is if I don't like my lineups because I have to bump down too far, or that he's chalky and I think he'll be the most popular play of the week, but not to any sort of degree that we have to avoid him. So talk to me about Rory, and then I think we need to rank the top 4 or top 6 though at some point.
Let's do that. So I like Rory a lot. He is my favorite in this tier, so I think we're going to fight about this, but let me talk about why I like Rory. Apparently, my dog also likes Rory. Anyway, I've been pretty meh on him recently, but he finished third in Abu Dhabi. That was good. That was 2 weeks ago. It looked good at the Farmers last week, and I think I'm buying back in. Specifically, McIlroy was awesome off the tee. He gained 3.7 there in his 3 measured rounds. That was in addition to gaining 2.1 in approach and 1.5 around the green. And the off the tee play, not a surprise for Rory because he leads the field in strokes gained off the tee over the past 50 rounds. And with the increased emphasis on that this week, that does matter quite a bit. Now, McIlroy just 50th in approach in that time, which is weird. But we know how good he is in that department long term. I'm willing to bet on him getting back into quote-unquote dominant Rory form soon. And it's not like he's been awful. He has not finished outside the top 25 since the Northern Trust. He has not missed a cut since the Open in 2019. Even Rory being down is not bad. So I think that upside is going to come back again soon. So I want to buy in at 11.7. Doesn't sound like you were in on Rory. Why?
I mean, I just analysis or paralysis by analysis, really, I guess. There's just the top 6 are so good. And Jon Rahm is the best fit for me statistically. Most likely to win. Xander's floor is so good always. Justin Thomas wins a lot. Rory hasn't been winning, which I don't think is predictive. I like Rory. It's just I have him 4th out of the 4. And Webb, we haven't really talked about Webb. He's he won here last year. We've seen him 4th at the Sony, 17th at the Tournament of Champions when he just didn't drive it well. But there's no reason to dislike Webb Simpson. There aren't a lot of reasons to dislike Daniel Berger. So for the salary savings I can get on Berger and Webb, I think I'd put them sort of over Rory. And just from a floor ceiling combination, I'd put Rahm, JT, and Xander over Rory. So it's nothing against Rory. I just like the other guys better.
So here's the thing. Instead of going Berger over Rory, you can go Berger and Rory. Why not both?
You can also go Berger and Xander.
Or I could choose not to. Do you want to do a Xander versus Rory bet this week? FanDuel points?
I could do that.
I don't want to talk you into it. If you're not into it.
I'm fine with it because I ranked Xander higher. It's just I feel this way in majors, but I feel this way this week. I'm not going to talk. It's so hard to pick a favorite. My favorite's Rahm, but outside of Rahm, I'm not going to talk to you about playing Rory because there's a lot to like.
Rory's going to win. That's why you can like him. Let's move to our second high salary plays. Who else do you like up here on FanDuel?
I'm going to jump down to Bubba because I think it's very realistic I play one of the 4 studs or the 6 studs and then try to balance things out a little bit more just so that I'm not taking too many stabs down in the low range. And I will have lineups with multiple studs and some value plays, but I think my main lineup construction, the one I lean on most, is still going to be probably like a Rom and then jump down to Bubba as my second guy. I was in on him last week. Did not work out, but I'm going back. He has 2 straight top 5s at this event. He's made 10 of 11 cuts here. Just wasn't himself last week. The conditions weren't really meant for Bubba. The conditions this week in beautiful weather should be right for Bubba. He fits the course well. We know how good the ball striking is. We know he's got the distance, and honestly, his putter's not that bad when he's not on bent grass. The irons are on point. He's in the 91st percentile in this field and adjusted strokes gained tee to green. So not a whole lot to dislike about Bubba, and I want to make sure that I'm, giving picks that reflect what my lineups are going to be. I can almost guarantee Bubba is going to be in my head-to-head lineup against you.
Okay, cool. I think that's fine. I can justify that for sure. The reason we might be different is because I'm considering Daniel Berger to be a quote-unquote stud, and it seems like you're not quite there. And I consider a set approach being one that includes Berger.
Never said that.
Okay, sorry. Didn't mean to put words in your mouth. You're right. I will let you talk about Berger in a second. But first, here's why I like Berger. Doesn't the same name value as like Rahm, McIlroy, Schauffele, JT, but you do lose a lot of win equity in not getting a second guy of those 4. But I think Berger's play recently has been on par with theirs, and that does matter. Berger is elite statistically, ranks 13th off the tee, 14th in approach, 16th in putting. He's also 6th in the field in birdies or better gained in the past 50 rounds. And there aren't any big holes in his game based on this course. And he knows the course well, too. He's been here 6 times. He has 4 top 11 finishes, so has good course history, is in better form now than he has been previously. And I think he is the bottom end of that tier. And I think that getting him at 11-1, the discount there is enough where I feel good about getting 2 studs in every lineup. I think my default build this week will be one of the top 4 plus Berger. What puts you on Berger if you do like him? I'm assuming you do.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of feature 2 guys in each range in my write-up on numberFire. This week it's Rahm and Berger, despite the fact that I like the top 4 a lot. It's just he rates out really well statistically. There's a bit of a discount from the stud tier. He's the second best statistical play in my stats only model. Rates out well in my win simulations. Just does everything I need, and does come in at a discount. I think that the key difference here is you are more okay with the value plays than I am. So I just don't think realistically I can get to like Xander or Rahm plus Berger and feel great about everything else. That's the real difference. And I think there's also just some, Patrick Reed won last week, Daniel Berger. He might have some extra motivation this week.
Sure. Why not? I'll take it. I think Berger's an awesome play. He will be in our head-to-head. I can guarantee you that for sure. Let's move to the mid-range. Who do you have there?
I have Russell Henley at 9,700. My model loves him, mostly because of the irons. He's in the 18th percentile in driving distance over the past 100 rounds, according to Fantasy National. 87th percentile in accuracy. However, so he does gain strokes off the tees in the 57th percentile there once adjusted for, the fields he's played in, according to the stuff that I adjust. He pairs that with the best adjusted iron play in the field. He's alternated good finishes at this course. Cut 16th, cut 15th, cut. I won't then make the case that he will be 14th this week, but there's just a lot to like. And the finishes at this course are not like, he's so much better now than he was during those events that it's not really fair to look at those and sort of use them to predict anything.
I think Henley is the perfect example we talked about at the top, where there's a reason I didn't want to look at just distance, because I don't want to cross off guys who are in the Webb mold who don't have distance but are still good drivers because they're just good golfers. I think Henley is that guy this week who fits that perfectly. So I think that Henley would be my favorite guy in this upper tier if I had to list someone. I like Henley a lot, and I'm also in on Siwoo Kim and Sam Burns, which is why I like this range. I think there are a lot of guys I like here, but I'm going to go Kim. Coming off a missed cut this past week, Burns is 18th last week, so we'll go for the bounce back here with Siwoo Kim. The stats still line up really well for Siwoo Kim. Outside of the putting, he is 33rd off the tee, 21st in approach, and 15th in birdies or better gained. The win 2 weeks ago, based on those numbers, was not a fluke, and I think he should set up pretty well for this course here. The missed cut could make him feel like his old volatile self, but he's kind of ditched that narrative, I guess. He has made 14 to 17 cuts since the beginning of July, which is a pretty long sample now. He has as many top 10s in that time as he has missed cuts. And so I think that Siwoo Kim's a good play. I will say again, I do like Sam Burns. I do like Russell Henley too. And I think that Henley is my preferred guy in this range outside of, not I like him more than Connors. I think it's Henley, Connors 1 and 2, but I'll put Siwoo Kim 3 in this range. Sam Burns 4 is just a good range overall. You're not in on Siwoo Kim. Is it the putting that puts you away or what?
Just kind of preferring Henley, Connors, and Burns to him. I just have them as sort of better sort of overall course fits. It's just it. Like, again, I'm not going to talk anyone out of Siwoo Kim. There's enough there to like. But I think there's also enough reason for me to put him just fourth in that range.
Okay, that's fair. I think that's
not that convincing, but like it's, they're all pretty close.
If you have nits to pick with someone, it's a good range. You can push them down. I think that's totally fair. He's also good for me because he's behind Connors and Henley.
I'm just trying to figure out what you're looking at. If you like this range, but you also want to play two studs, like you gotta be like in the 7,000 range for your.
No, I don't. Berger, McIlroy.
Yeah.
One low 8,000 guy, 3 guys in this range. Or high 8,000 guy, low 8,000 guy, Bubba, 1 guy in this range. You got options.
Okay.
I got things I can do. Creativity, brah. Who else do you like in the mid-range here?
Brendan Steele, 9,300, 65 to 1 to win. He's showing life. He's been striking the irons well. Past 2 events, he's finished 4th and 21st. He has 7 top 26 finishes and 10 tries at this course. So, the current form and the course form kind of check out. And if you look at the long-term adjusted strokes gained tee to green numbers, I have him 84th percentile relative to this field, which is a very good number for the salary of 9,300. He's 95th in approach, 65th percentile or better in both of the driving stats. Distance and accuracy, he's like 55th or so and off the tee, but does enough. And I'm going to be more inclined to play Taylor Gooch, Brendan Steele than I am jumping down and playing Erik van Rooyen.
Man, it's a big difference. There's $1,000 difference between Van Rooyen and Steele. But I think if I were in this range, Steele would.
No, I'm saying like construction wise, I can't just punt with Erik van Rooyen because it's worth it to get up. Is what I'm saying.
Is it? I don't know. I'm not going to do EVR straight up versus Steele, but I'll take it.
I don't like the low 8,000 range.
I mean, I don't like most people in the low 8,000 range, but whatever. Steele probably be the guy I'd turn to if I were in this range. I'd probably go him over on. Would you agree with that?
Yes, but I might go Gooch over Steele even.
Okay, fair enough. I think Gooch is fine as well. Let's talk about Cory Connors. I think, again, the low 9,000 range is pretty bad, so I'm going to try to avoid it. And Cory Connors feels like the last guy before a tier fall off to me, so I'll put Connors here. We talked about the good finishes before, and the finishes are fine, but he backs up with good stats, which is always good to see. Ranked 6th off the tee, 17th in approach, 23rd in birdies or better gained the past 50 rounds. We know the putting is good, but it's been less actively bad recently. I think that's promising, and he's not torpedoing things there. Connors has made 8 straight cuts. He has 6 top 25 finishes in that time. He's got enough upside to justify $9,500. So a variant on Connors. You are as well. Any final thoughts on him or this range?
No, Connors just kind of a core play for me this week.
So Brandon has an active hatred for everyone whose salary is below $9,000. With that in mind, who do you like?
I like two guys in the upper 8,000 range, which to me can be lumped in with like the low 9,000 because there's a big difference between like 88 and 82, just in terms of expectation anyway. We get that this week, but I like Ryan Moore just fine at 8,800. The form, not great. Three straight missed cuts. He actually has missed three straight cuts dating back to August on the PGA Tour. His two missed cuts the past 2 weeks have come on the number, though, and he shot 70-71, 70-74, so it's definitely not abysmal. He's actually gained strokes tee to green in those two events. You can probably take advantage of that for this week. He is one of only 5 golfers with a salary of 9,000 or below who rates in the 50th percentile or better in adjusted strokes gained off the tee, approach, and putting since the start of 2020.
Yeah, Moore is someone I'm generally pretty okay with and would be okay with here as well. My slight preference, though, is for Henrik Norlander, who is my first player pick here below 9,000. He's been a missed cut machine recently. He's missed a cut 8 times in 18 events since the end of the COVID layoff, which is not ideal, but he's a really good ball striker. And with that mattering more this week, I am okay with the risk in the profile for Norlander. He ranks 30th in the field off the tee, 5th in approach the past 50 rounds, also 53rd in aggregate putting the past 100 rounds. The big issue with Norlander is around the green play. He always loses strokes there, like every single time. And if that matters less this week, that big weakness should matter a bit less. Norlander coming off a second place finish, that could lead to him being popular. And if that happens, you can abandon ship. But like Brandon said, I don't think anyone's going to be prohibitively popular this week. So straight up, I think Norlander is a good play this week. I like him at $8,900. And it sounds like you are there as well, correct?
Yep. 74th percentile or better, both adjusted ball striking stats. Just a lot to like. It's not chasing the finish from last week. It's trusting the long-term form, which is good for the salary. And I think the key discrepancy that we didn't really, we've been talking around is I like those two golfers, Moore and Norlander as values. I don't want to really have to go below that if I don't have to.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't want to go there very often, but I will sometimes.
Especially not my main lineup. Like, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. So if you had to go down there, like let's say you decide I need to get the win equity of having 2 studs, where would you go?
Martin Laird, maybe 8,400. He's moved from 150 to 100 to 1, so that makes me feel a little bit better. I liked him before that a little bit. Liked as in the sense if I had to recommend somebody, but kind of makes sense why he's there. He's got a lengthy history at this course. 9 made cuts out of 11 starts since 2011. The irons have been really terrible recently, but the longer term form is better for Laird. So there's that. And I believe he won here before, but I'm trying not to look too closely. No, he didn't. He had a couple of top 5s, but
yeah, I'm not really on Laird.
I'm not on anybody down here.
Okay, fair
they're bad.
Okay, I'm going to go with Eric Van Rooyen in a second, but I'm going to list names, and you say blech or meh, because I know you're not.
I'm not making those noises.
I want you to.
Yeah, I'll say yes and no.
No, blech or meh, because it's not a yes, it's like an okay. Okay or no? How about that?
Okay.
But in your mind, it's really blech or meh or meh.
I gotcha.
Luke List.
No.
Sepp Straka.
Okay.
Okay, I'll take that. I'm done. That's all I needed. I need to get one okay. I'm not going to list Grillo because I don't want to do that. But let's talk about Eric Van Rooyen. I know. The recent off the tee play for Van Rooyen has definitely taken a dip. He's actually lost there in 3 of the past 5 events, but the longer term numbers on him there are awesome, and he definitely can have pop weeks with his approach. He just has to do it at the same time for once. Van Rooyen, 28th in the field off the tee, 28th in approach, 18th in birdies or better gain. Definitely not a plus putter, but he's not the worst. If you look at all different kinds of surfaces, 81st in aggregate putting the past 100 rounds. That's not terrible. The missed cut odds are definitely high, and the finishes have not shown upside, but he has weeks where one aspect of his game clicks. He has multiple aspects that can click. If he can tap into 2 of those at once, he could win by 16 strokes. So I'm okay with EVR. Why are you not? I mean, I know why, but talk to me about him.
I mean, at a certain point, I can't just continue to hope.
Oh, yes, you can. You can't spell hope without EVR. Don't check my math there.
Like the putting's been not as bad, but we've also seen the tee to green numbers fall off. So if he's working on the putting, he's losing the ball striking.
If they come back while maintaining the putting, what if?
If Eric Van Rooyen all of a sudden turns the field tee to green and puts up 5 strokes putting, yes. What are the odds of that? Not that high.
16%. It's going to happen. Eric Van Rooyen versus Xander. Add up bet. Let's go.
Do you do EVR versus Joel Damon?
No, I'll do it versus Laird, though.
Okay,
cool. Win picks for this week. I don't even know who I picked last week. I don't want to know. It was probably bad. So
you picked Cameron Davis and Matthew Wolff,
didn't I? Yeah, cool. Davis, actually, I got a lot of closing line value on, so I'm okay with that one. The Wolff one was rough. This week, I think because of the way the field breaks, I will not be taking longer shots. I think to me, it's second and third tier plays are going to be the ones that stand out most to me. That's where my head is at. Where is your head at when it comes to outrights this week?
It's tough. You can kind of probably do the top 5 and say that there's no value there. The closest thing to value for me in my model is Xander, which is kind of always the case, but I don't know if I'm going to go to Xander, but I'm also not really looking at anybody like even 60 to 1 or longer. I just don't see the value there. In terms of, because like you got to beat out Rahm, JT, Xander, Rory, Webb, Berger, some of these other guys who they're gonna like Scheffler might return, Zalatoris might like. I can't recommend many long shots for outrights this week.
I'm going Rory and Berger. I know Rory is not going to have value in your betting model. I know that. Like if I had to guess, so he has to be at like whatever 1 divided by 12 is. I don't know math, like 8% or something like that.
I've met 8.3% at 11 to 1. Is he 12 to 1 now?
What are his sims though? What are his sim numbers?
What are his odds to win?
His simulated odds to win based on your
5.8%.
Okay, I'm gonna eat that 3% of a negative value and go Rory at 11 to 1 to win this week. And Berger 20 to 1. I wish we had recorded earlier so I could have got him at 22. But like, I think there is a reason that movement has happened. I think it's justified. So I can't really justify taking swings at longer shots this week, given what you talked about with the, how many studs you have to beat. So as a result of that, I am going to take 2 shorter numbers, which might not have a lot of value, but I think that they are the best bets at their respective numbers. So Rory and Berger are my bets this week.
Is Rory 12 to 1 now, or is he 11?
He's 11.
Okay.
But like 11 to 1 is 1 divided by 12.
Dog, don't do me like that. I can't do math.
Sorry. Who are your picks this week?
I'm strongly considering running back with the guys I had last week and just going with Xander and Bubba again.
I think Bubba's fine. I think I would rather have Rory than Xander.
I know that's probably why you picked Rory over Xander.
Also, we're betting head to head between them, right? Or did we not decide?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, cool. So
that doesn't bother me. If I had to bet one guy at the top, it might be Berger, it might be Webb, but it might be Xander as well. So I'm gonna go with Bubba for sure at 45 to 1.
Okay,
and then like I see like there's value on Harris English, but he just won. I don't like to bank on that happening again. I'll go with Xander again.
Okay, so you have Xander and Bubba running it back. You're running it with good first names though, so I can't hate on that. I have a guy named Daniel, so like clearly I'm liking that department. Rory's good, like from a name perspective. No Johns, no Justins. We're going for the good names. Xander, Bubba, Rory.
If we're going first names, it's Jerry for Bubba.
I mean, but like
Jerry Lester.
Like I don't call Bubba Wallace Daryl. Like, I don't
find the business.
He's Bubba. Come on. I'm in Daytona mode, baby. Let's go. That is all that we have for today. Brandon, any final thoughts for you on the waste management before we close up shop?
If I have them, I'll talk about them later today.
Oh, yeah, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages. I should look into that, whatever. Check it out, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday to ask Brandon questions about his win sims, as I did on air. You can ask him about DFS plays and all of that, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And then our Super Bowl preview with us and JJ is 3:30 p.m. on Friday. Our live covering the spread, Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, those same places. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
At Gdula13, GDULA13.
And I am at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcasts. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for running the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your DFS lineups and your bets for the Waste Management Phoenix Open. We'll talk to you once again next week. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire.